The Lexus IS 500 is one of a dying breed. It's a naturally aspirated V8 rear-wheel drive sports sedan that will get 17 miles per gallon in the city and tell you to be grateful. And you will be, because that's exactly what you wanted from it.
I know, you hear this a lot. The SUVs and EVs are coming to steal your beloved V8 cars. But they are. And if you don't appreciate them now, they'll be gone before you know it. This is the 2024 IS 500F Sport, and I'm Alanis King. Let's go for a drive and stick around for the end of this video to get this IS 500's full report card. Today, I'm talking about this IS 500 with my buddy, Jeff Gordon. And if you want your own Jeff Gordon to wear around, you can go to Home Field Apparel and use code ALANIS24 for 15% off your order. Home Field makes all kinds of collegiate, pro sports, and motorsports merch, and I love it. I hope you will too, and you can use code ALANIS24 if you do.
The Lexus IS is Lexus's compact sports sedan. It's been around since 1998 when it launched in Japan as the Toyota Altezza. It came to America not long after as the IS 300, and Motor Trend said after driving it in the year 2000 that the IS might stand for instant success. It doesn't, but we'll get to that later. The idea was for the Lexus IS to be a competitor to smaller sports sedans like the ever-popular BMW 3 Series. The first IS was the brainchild of Nobuaki Katayama, the creator of the legendary AE86 Toyota Corolla. The original American-bound IS 300 came with rear-wheel drive and a 2JZ GE engine. This was a naturally aspirated variant of the very popular 4th-gen Supra engine, and the original IS 300 made 215 horsepower with it. The early IS 300 also got a wagon version called the Sport Cross, and that first generation stayed around until 2005. Then came the second-gen IS. This car looked a lot sportier, like it was ready to lunge forward at any moment. You could get a V6, a V8, an available manual transmission, optional all-wheel drive, and more. And this generation stuck around until 2013. That's when we got the third generation, which carried over but revised a lot of elements of the second generation. That car is still around today, albeit with some more refreshing.
Motor Trend was being clever when they said the Lexus IS might stand for instant success, but all of Lexus's little letters in their model names do mean something. The Lexus LC literally stands for luxury coupe. The LS is luxury sedan, and the RX is radiant crossover. Lexus describes the IS as a luxury sedan, but LS was already taken, so they had to get a little more abstract with it, and IS means intelligent sports. Intelligent sports what? Sedan, I guess, but ISS was taken. The IS 500F Sport comes with a 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 that makes 472 horsepower and 395 pound-feet of torque. That's right, no turbos in here, no nothing, just hell yeah brother naturally aspirated Japanese V8. All of that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission to the rear wheels and takes this car from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.4 seconds. If you hell yeah brother it a little too hard, you have a handy little warning on the back window here. This vehicle is equipped with high-performance tires that may experience less than 15,000 miles of tread life, depending on driving conditions. But the positive of that is that we have this quad stacked exhaust back here, and it looks and sounds pretty sick.
500 is not the end-all for hardcore sports sedans. Lexus says the car is, I quote, highly competitive within the mid-performance segment, meaning its competitors aren't the top-line BMW M and Audi RS models. They're the BMW M Performance and Audi S models, which are a step between the automakers' normal cars and their most hardcore ones. The thing is, the IS 500 F Sport doesn't really compare to any other car on the American market directly. The era of V8 sports sedans is almost over, and it's certainly over for mid-tier performance sedans. The IS 500's direct competitors just don't have V8s anymore.
The Lexus IS 500 is an old car on an old platform, but I think Lexus does a really good job of making it look modern. It has all of these aggressive body lines that come forward into this large grille, and it kind of reminds me of a modern BMW front end. Now, I do not mean that with a negative connotation. You may not like BMW's large grille, just like you may not like Lexus's large grille. But I think we can all admit that the aggression leading into that grille, the sharp hood lines that all kind of come together, do look pretty good. In addition to that, we have these really sharp headlights up front. I love this little white bit that goes through them. It looks kind of like a cartoonish lightning strike, and it's just really nice. We also have the paint color, which is called Incognito. And listen, it's a cool name, and it's starting to grow on me as a color. And you might say, Alanis, that's primer gray. What's wrong with you? But wait, there are a lot of popular car colors that are kind of primer grayish. We have Audi's Nardo Gray and Porsche's Chalk, in addition to this Incognito. And listen, is it my favorite? No. Do I think it's a good option? Yes, because especially in America, people buy one of 4 car colors: white, silver, gray, and black. And people will say, oh, it's for resale value. I don't want to turn off future buyers. I want to make the most money possible when I sell the car. No, they're just scared of colors, and that is what it is. But this offers them an option that's not super scary, right? It still fits in their normal little sphere of colors they can buy, but is also different, because usually when you buy a gray in that sphere, it's a metallic gray. This is flat, and I think it looks really cool. Would I prefer an actual color? Yes, I would. Do I prefer this over those 4? Yeah, I do, and I think it's a good option. This Lexus IS 500 F Sport costs $67,610 after options and fees. Standard features include F Sport styling, a heated steering wheel, aluminum pedals, and a rear power sunshade, as well as Lexus's driver assistance suite and a few more things. Optional features include 19-inch matte black BBS forged wheels for just under $2,500, illuminated door sills for $425, and a carpet trunk mat for $120. Speaking of trunks, it's time for my favorite segment. How many Atlantises can fit in this Lexus IS 500's trunk? Now, I've been in some Lexus trunks before, and they're pretty roomy. What a sentence that was. They're pretty roomy, so I don't have many fears getting in this one, but we'll see. Oh, gotta squeeze in. And lay down. Oh, how am I gonna pull this down? I love that they put handles in here just for me. Oh yeah, once I back up, this is a solid almost 2 Atlantises. 2 Atlantises could definitely get in here. For sure. I'm not super worried about us. Welcome inside the Lexus IS 500 F Sport, which is honestly pretty peaceful in here. And when I look at the odometer, it has 391 miles on it. I'm pretty sure I'm the first person to have this car, and you know, that happens every once in a while in this industry, but it's still kind of weird to think you're the first person to drive a press car. I really like the interior of this car. I love the red. I really think it's just the red that gets me. But this interior feels peaceful and elegant. Yeah, is it a little old? Yeah, it's a little old, but it's still pretty nice. Now, let me point out a few weird things. Our parking brake lever is right here. My hand goes right here by the steering wheel under here. That took me forever to find the other day. I was like, where is the parking brake? Oh, it's right here by my right knee. How odd. All of our controls for this car are on this big center dashboard thing, right? And is it the best design? No, it's kind of square and very, very busy. And we have all of these buttons and things illuminated all over the place. And you get a little lost in this center dashboard, right? But the really cool thing about it is each person has this temperature control, right? That goes from cold to hot, but you don't have to turn a dial or press buttons or anything like that. It's this touch sensitive thing where you just run your finger up the temperature control and it brings up your temperature or down your temperature, whatever you want. It's so cool, and it's just one of those things that you don't see a lot that is entertaining, and you can show people. It's a little party trick to show everybody. This car also still has a CD player slot, which I think is awesome, okay? Because new cars, they just don't really have CD players. And I, as an old person, have CDs. So if I have this car and I have my CDs, boom, I can just pop them right in. I don't have to use my phone or anything. Speaking of phones, CarPlay in here. There is a downside. It's wired. You cannot do wireless Apple CarPlay in this car. You can connect your phone wirelessly to the car and listen to music and stuff, but when you do that, you will be using Lexus's infotainment system. To get CarPlay, which is the wonderful, beautiful display that's the same on every single screen and looks like your phone, you gotta plug it in. And that, if you're in this car all the time, if this is your car, that will get a little annoying because it's really nice to just get in a car and have CarPlay come up. Not have to plug it in and do all that extra stuff. Have a cord specifically for the car. That's no fun. Just make CarPlay wireless. We talked about how this interior is kind of old. And the biggest indicator of that is Lexus's touchpad. Lexus for a long time was a touchpad automaker, kind of like Acura, where they wanted to sell you on the fact that if you ran your finger around like a little laptop cursor, it would be better than just touching the screen. Lexus gave that up a few years ago, but this car is so old that they just didn't take the touchpad out. Lexus even took the touchpad out of the LC500, which sells like maybe 1,500 units a year, but they did not take it out of here, which I think is actually kind of funny. A couple of other things to note about the front of this car are some of the materials. I think they're kind of interesting. So right here, we do not have piano black in the center console area. We have it up here where all the buttons are, which is probably the worst place for it to be because your fingers are up there, getting the shiny piano black all nasty and greasy, but the center console part is not piano black. It's also not a cheap plastic. It feels pretty sturdy and nice. And the power and volume buttons and the tune buttons on this car are a very interesting texture. They kind of feel like a chalkboard. They're nice to the touch, but then you start thinking about scratching them with your nails like a chalkboard, and they kind of freak me out after that. We have moved to the back of the Lexus IS 500F Sport. And the first thing you notice is that there is not really a lot going on back here. It's pretty simple. This seat, the driver's seat, I just got out of it and it did the normal thing where the seat goes back into its sat back position. So this seat is pretty much all the way back, not where a normal person would usually drive with it at. And I still have a little bit of legroom. I've got like an inch on my knees. I have a teeny bit of headroom right above me, a couple of inches. I'm 5'8½", so take that as you will. If you're much taller than me, you're not really going to fit back here. And if your head hits the ceiling, it's gonna sound kind of hollow. It's a very odd sound up here. This light right here is a little cheap, sounds a little hollow, odd. As a backseat passenger, I do not have my own climate controls. I just have a couple of vents, but I cannot set them myself. So whatever those people up there want is what I am getting. Aside from that, I'm just looking at a lot of red. You know, it's not unpleasant back here, but I also just don't have a lot of features and things to customize for myself. The one thing I will say is our center armrest with the cup holders that pop out like this. I haven't seen this style of cup holder in a back seat in a while, so that was kind of interesting. Oh, that sounds so nice. It is time to drive the Lexus IS 500 F Sport. And I should say, we're on the good roads right now, right? We're out here, it's nice and twisty and windy, we're where we always are. But I have driven this car a little bit around town. So I wanna walk you through that as I'm getting used to it on this road, because this is my first time driving it on the good road. So in town, this car actually feels oddly large and heavy. When you're driving it around, you just feel like you have a presence. And I don't mean that in a bad way, right? It doesn't feel like a garbage truck. It doesn't feel like anything terrible. It just feels large and very heavy. And I think the feeling I get from that is I am stately, I am luxury. Sure, I'm sporty, but I'm not tiny, right? I'm big and I'm still nimble, despite the fact that this car is big. And the car does feel bigger than I think it is. When you pull into a parking spot or anything like that, you do feel like the car is very large. When you take a corner, you feel like the car is very large. That's how it drives around town. Now we're gonna drive it out here and see what it feels like. We're already going 70 and it feels like we're not going fast at all at 70. I mean, the insulation is so good. There's some road noise, right? But there's not a lot of wind noise. The only wind noise I'm really hearing is the wind going past my GoPro out here right now, because the wind is hitting the GoPro. Aside from that, I really don't think I would hear much at all. And the car feels very smooth. I mean, we are in our sport driving mode. We're in Sport S, which is just sport with an extra S, I guess. And even then, like, the car doesn't feel like the suspension is super stiff or anything's like just harsh, right? This is a very smooth car. It's kind of detached from the road because it's so smooth, but let's take it through some corners and see how we feel. Now this is interesting. When you go into a corner, there is weight transfer. You can see me leaning, right? So as I take a corner at a high speed, watch me lean, because there is weight transfer in this car. The weight is leaning from one side to the other. It doesn't just feel like it's flat to the road all the time, stuck like a roller coaster. You are transferring back and forth. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It actually gives you some feeling that I think you're lacking in the road feel and the steering feel. It actually allows you to feel more present in a way that those other features don't. So I don't think the weight transfer is a bad thing. I think it's kind of fun, actually. A couple of other important things to note about the IS 500 F Sport is, one, I do not love the shifter action from park to drive or park to reverse or anything you need to go into. So I've felt this in other Lexuses before, like I think the RX 350. The shifter doesn't feel super nice. It feels kind of toy-like. So when you shift it from park to drive, if you're a sim racer or you've experienced a sim rig before, it's kind of like a Logitech G27. It just feels very loose and very toy-like. I don't love the feeling of it, but hey, it is what it is. Another important thing to note is that the pedals are kind of light in this car, and the brake is squishy. So when you're out doing sporty driving and you press the brake and it squishes, it's not the best feeling. But I also get it. I mean, this car is a luxury car first, and it's somewhat sporty second, right? The big sporty feature of this car is that naturally aspirated V8. The rest of it's kind of just a luxury car. I wish this car was actually a little less deadened to the world around me. I wish it was more visceral, because I feel like if it was just a little more visceral, if the steering had more consequence to it, if I actually felt the road more and the suspension were stiffer, I think it would be really, really fun out here. As it is right now, it's fun. I'm not saying it's not fun, but it's also just very removed, right? Like, this isn't exactly what this car is for. And if it just felt a little more visceral, there would be something really to it here. I think it's time we make a run for it acceleration-wise. Ready? You know, this car picks up and goes, okay? It's 3,900 pounds, and we have a 472 horsepower V8 and an 8-speed automatic. And once it starts actually accelerating, you're like, okay, this is mild acceleration. Like, it's fun, but it's nothing that just whips you out of your seat. But that initial planting of your foot, there's a little jump that the car does, and you're like, oh. That part is really, really fun. After that, the acceleration is good, right? It's nothing wild, because, you know, to get 4,000 pounds up to speed, even if you have a nearly 500 horsepower V8, it's still 4,000 pounds, okay? It takes a minute. Now, I will say, one common complaint about this car that I do agree with is the shifting is not exactly what you want from this car, right? The shifting is slow, and it's also slow to react. So the action of shifting is slow, and it's slow to react, like downshifting wise. Like, you really want it to downshift and upshift, and you want it to do it faster than it does. You want it to react faster, and it doesn't. It's a little lax in that regard, but you know, when you're accelerating and you take it to 7,000 RPM and it just shifts into the next gear, it's still fun. It's still an enjoyable experience. I think we all know what that feels like, and it's enjoyable. This is a very interesting car because it's trying to be a few things at once. It's trying to be like a mid-tier sports sedan, right? It's not trying to be super hardcore. It's trying to be a mid-tier sports sedan, but it's also trying to be pretty luxurious. It's a $67,000 luxury sedan. So it is hard to mix those two identities, right? It's hard to feel like a sports car, but also feel comfortable to drive on the highway and go places in. And this car does the comfort thing very, very well. I mean, I would drive this car long distances. It's very comfortable in here. But that comfort does take away from the driving experience when you want to take it out on a good road. Do I think this car could be really fun at very, very high speeds, like on a racetrack? Yeah, I do. Are the legal speeds on the road like 70 miles an hour and stuff? Do you feel much at those speeds? Not as much as you want, you know, but that's just part of having a kind of mid-tier sports sedan that's also luxury. Like, you make sacrifices. Now, does this car sound amazing?
Absolutely it does. And that's just what you get from a naturally aspirated V8. I mean, it sounds great. And if you do want a luxury sports sedan in this market with a naturally aspirated V8, this is kind of your pick, right? We're in an era of turbocharging and we're in an era where you just don't really see a lot of naturally aspirated V8s anymore. And those V8s are gonna go away even quicker as we move forward into an era of fewer cylinders and sometimes no cylinders at all, EVs, right? This is not a car that's taking us into the future. This is a car that is reminding us of our past. And I think that is a really special thing. Is it perfect? No. Could it be a little sillier out on the roads here? Yeah, I think it could be a little sillier. But it's also just a reminder of where we come from, right? We come from a world of V8s and natural aspiration. And as we go into the future, people will miss that. I'll miss that, you'll miss that, we all will. Does this allow you to have that in a fairly modern package? Yeah, it does. And there's something special to that. Now that we've driven the IS 500 F Sport, it's time to grade it. Welcome to Alanis's report card. The exterior on this car gets a B. Is it new and innovative? No, it is not. But is this a new car? No, it is not. And Lexus does its best with what it has. The interior gets a B+. I really like the red and the quality of the materials in there. But the center of the dashboard is a little busy, and also you can tell it's an old car made modern inside. Performance gets a B-. This car is fun and it's powerful, but it lacks some of the feeling that I want it to have when I'm out driving it. Value gets a B. $67,000 is a lot of money, but when you get in this car, your first thought is, this is probably a mid to high $70,000 car. So when you look at the sheet and it says $67,000, you go, that's a pleasant surprise. Would I take this car on a road trip? Yes, I would. It is so comfortable, and if you get bored, you can just give that gas pedal a little tap and hear it ring. Overall, this car gets a B. It got Bs across the board, and honestly, for how old the platform is, a B is really good. The Lexus IS 500 F Sport is one of the last of its kind. Call it stubborn, call it a holdout, call it a relic of another time, or call it what it really is. An opportunity to buy a new car that not only appeals to our old school tastes, but also keeps us comfortable and stylish while doing so. We always call people old souls with a hint of fondness in our voice, and I think the same can be true of cars. The Lexus IS 500 F Sport is the perfect example of that, an old soul in a young, athletic body. And that is not a bad thing to be.